Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Horizon 4. Today we are taking a look at the DLC cars for week number 12 of the Car Pass, aka the 13th of December 2018. This week also saw the launch of the first expansion for Forza Horizon 4 in the form of Fortune Island. Unfortunately, I cannot do a full DLC rundown of all the cars included in that DLC because there's no actual proper menu where you're able to look at them, and certain cars are buyable and certain cars are unlockable, so unfortunately I can't cover that, but I can cover the two cars from the Car Pass, and it was a pretty darn good week for the Car Pass, which theme this week was legendary Hondas. We begin with the 2003 Honda S2000, the returning S2000, 247 horsepower, 161 foot-pound torque, 2,756 pounds of weight, front-engined rear-wheel drive, B-Class 618 PI. Of course, we already have an S2000 in the game in the form of the Honda S2000 CR, which is the same S2000 that's been in Forza since Forza Motorsport 5. Before then, it was this S2000, the 2003 model. While the CR is a very good car, and a lot of people like the CR, people aren't such a fan of using it long term, mostly because it skips out a lot of the modifications that could be applied to the older S2000. And of course, one reason for the S2000's popularity is its huge ability to be modified and tuned and all that, and people wanted wide body kits and cosmetic items for that car, and that's why they were asking for the older S2000 to come back so they could, you know, customize that one more, have a bit more of a standard base instead of having the CR, which is already a little bit upgraded. So here it is, the S2000, and tuners will not be disappointed. Not only do its customizable parts from Forza Motorsport 4 return, there is also a 2 or 3, I think it was 2, wide bodies available for the Honda S2000 as well, so plenty of customization which people should have been hoping for. Of course, if you don't know about the S2000 as a car, it is an absolutely fantastic vehicle. Launched in 1999, part of Honda's S range of sports cars. Of course, you had the S500, S600, S800, then they would bring out this, the S2000, and now they've recently bought the S660, which is basically the new Honda Beat, and that's an awesome car. I want that to be in a Forza. I think that's in Gran Turismo, but the S2000 is essentially a two-seater roadster with a 2-litre VTEC engine that produces 247 horsepower, and it's naturally aspirated redline, 9,000 RPM. It's an insane car. It's apparently absolutely fantastic to drive in real life. They look great, and again, you've got the wide market of aftermarket, turbos, superchargers, body kits, you name it. The S2000 can have it done to it. It can be a drift car, it can be a track car, it can be whatever you want. And that's the beauty of the S2000, and I am happy to see it in the game. Yes, I know I'm being a little bit hypocritical by saying that because I've criticised them in the past for sort of different versions of cars they've already added into the game, so stuff like the 356 Coupe, I didn't really see the point on that when we had the Speedster, but this one I think makes a bit more sense. This one's like the Spirit R from the first DLC month. You know, that car, sure, it is essentially another car that's being brought forward from the previous games, and yes, there was already a version of it in the game, but with the Spirit R I thought it was better than the RX-7, and for this one I can see why it's in the game, because it's actually got body kits and stuff. Yes, you could make the argument the CR could have had, you know, the stock items from this car added onto it, but either way, you know, I like the S2000, so I'm sorry, I have to be hypocritical on this and say I'm happy to see it in the game. Not as happy as I am to see the next car though, the 1974 Honda Civic RS, 76 horsepower, 75 foot-pound torque, 1,620 pounds of weight, front-engined, front-wheel drive, D320 PI. Of course, this is the first generation of the Honda Civic, where it all started, and as we all know today, the Honda Civic is massively successful. It's been around for over 40 years now. We've had several generations of it. You've had Type Rs and all sorts made of it, but this is where it all began. More specifically, this is where the hot Honda Civic began with the RS. Of course, by today's figures, it's not that impressive, 1.2 litre engine, 76 horsepower, but back then, it was a pretty decent amount of power to make in such a tiny little car, and that's the one thing you will notice with the older Civic. It is a very small car. I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't add the CVCC version of the car. Of course, I understand why they went with the RS, because it's the hotter one, but I can't really find out too much about the RS in particular. It's one I'd never heard of, but the CVCC is one that I had heard of. That was essentially built in the 1970s, and the beauty of it is it conformed to all the latest emission standards. It didn't need a catalytic converter. and it could be run on any type of fuel. You see, back then, obviously leaded fuel produced a lot more emissions than unleaded fuel does, which is what's standard today. But the CVCC could actually run on both and have good emissions and could get into California and all the rest of it. It's a fascinating car. If you want to go and read up on the CVCC Civic, it really is something worth looking at. But going back to this car, I'm assuming this is a Japanese-only model, the RS. It looks like it because, of course, Japan gets all the best bits, hence why it's a lot more powerful than your standard Civic of the day would be. I mean, the CVCC was 53 horsepower, and this has 76 horsepower. Yeah, really happy to see it in the game. Also, there is a wide body kit available for this car, if that's something you're inclined to do, and it does look pretty cool with it on. With or without, this is a cool car. I'm really happy to see the first-gen Honda Civic in the game. It's nice to see where it all started. Of course, we had CRXs and stuff in the past, but it is very cool to have the first generation of the mighty successful Civic. Anyways, that is the car pass for this week. As mentioned, Fortune Island was launched this week, so these cars have been getting a little bit overshadowed, but it is two really good additions to the game in my mind. And if we're reviewing the car pass for this month as a whole, I think it's been a decent month. This not quite as good as the first month, but certainly better than the second. The Civic RS, probably my favourite car of the entire pack. I really like this thing. I like the S2000, I like the Peel Trident, I like the FXX. I can see why the Vantage is in the game, certainly. The C-Type is a good car from a historical standpoint. The Silverado's not going to get much use out of me, but it's still something interesting. The only really bad car in this sort of group of vehicles, in my mind, was the 650S Spider, which is just a complete joke. And a real blight on an otherwise decent month for the car pass. Yeah, hopefully they learn their lesson and don't do too much of this spider nonsense over again. Or at least if they are going to add a spider, make sure we can drop the bloody roof on it. Yeah. But like I said, overall, I think this might actually be my favourite week that we've had out of this month. And it's a pretty good way to end off this month. So, thank you all very much for watching. And until next time, farewell.